The red warning lights flashed across the dark metal walls of the Concordat's main defense station. The alien operators stared at their screens in disbelief as something impossible appeared on their sensors. A human warship had entered their space, breaking through defenses they had believed perfect for over 300 years. Captain James Stone stood calm and steady on the bridge of the HSS Thunder, his gray eyes fixed on the main view screen. The massive warship slid silently through space, its new stealth systems working exactly as planned. Around him, his crew worked with quiet focus, each person knowing their role in this dangerous mission. "Status report," Stone said, his voice low but clear in the tense quiet of the bridge. "Stealth systems working at full power, Captain," answered Dr. Wright from his station. The chief science officer's fingers moved quickly over his controls, making small adjustments to keep their ship hidden. "The aliens can see us, but they can't get a clear fix on our position." Lieutenant Miller spoke up from her navigation station, her hands steady on the controls. "We're moving deeper into the system, Captain. Their patrol ships are scrambling, but they're searching in the wrong areas." Stone allowed himself a small smile. Months of planning were paying off. The Thunder wasn't just any warship. It was humanity's newest and most advanced vessel, built specifically for this mission. Its hull was covered with special panels that absorbed or deflected sensor scans, and its engines left almost no trace in space. These were human innovations that the Concordat, with all their supposed superiority, had never thought possible. The bridge crew watched as alien ships appeared on their screens, moving in patterns that showed their confusion and panic. The Concordat had gotten lazy over the centuries, too sure of their advanced technology. They had forgotten that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their machines, but in their ability to think differently, to solve problems in new ways. "Message from Earth Command, Captain," called out the communications officer. "They say we're clear to proceed with Phase 2. Stone nodded. Phase 2 was the riskier part of their plan. The Thunder carried proof of the Concordat's plans to attack Earth's colonies, plans they had discovered through careful intelligence work. But having the proof wasn't enough. They needed to show it to the right people. "Take us closer to their main communications relay," Stone ordered. "Dr. Wright, prepare the data package for broadcast." The massive ship turned slowly, its movement so smooth it seemed to drift like a shadow through space. Around them, more Concordat ships appeared, their sensors searching desperately for a clear lock on the Thunder's position. "Sir," Miller called out, her voice tight with excitement, "they're moving their home fleet out of position, just like we predicted." This was what they had hoped for. The Concordat's pride wouldn't let them ignore a human ship in their space. They would pull ships from everywhere to try to catch the Thunder, leaving their communications network vulnerable. "They're broadcasting warnings to their civilian populations," the communications officer reported, "telling them to stay calm, that everything is under control." Stone's smile grew slightly wider. "Perfect. They're using exactly the channels we need. Dr. Wright, begin the broadcast." As the Thunder moved through enemy space like a ghost, it began sending out its message, not to the Concordat military, but to their civilian populations. The truth about their leaders' plans for war, about their real level of technology, about the lies they had been told about humans being inferior. "Multiple impacts detected on their defense network," reported the tactical officer. "Their civilian channels are picking up our broadcast. They're trying to block it, but we're switching frequencies faster than they can respond." Stone watched the chaos spread across the enemy fleet's movements. The truth was loose now, spreading through the Concordat's own communication networks. Their perfect order was breaking down, and they had no defense against it. The first part of their mission was complete. Now they just had to survive long enough for the truth to do its work. High Commander Reeb paced in the central command chamber of the Concordat's defense headquarters. The massive screens surrounding him showed the impossible. A human warship moving freely through their space. His gray skin had taken on a darker shade, a sign of deep stress in his species. For 3 centuries, the Concordat had stood as the supreme power in this sector of space. Now, in less than an hour, that reputation was crumbling. "Find that ship," he ordered, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I want every vessel we have searching. Use the old sensor patterns, the backup systems, everything." The operators worked frantically at their stations, but the human ship kept slipping through their scanning nets. It was like trying to catch smoke with their hands. Their most advanced tracking systems, the pride of Concordat technology, seemed useless against whatever stealth system the humans had developed. Outside the military command center, the situation was getting worse. The public communication channels were filling with worried messages. Citizens who had never known anything but absolute security were suddenly facing the idea that their defenses weren't perfect. The human ship's presence was like a crack in a dam, and fear was pouring through. "Sir," one of the operators called out, "we're getting reports of public gatherings in the major cities. People are demanding answers." Reed turned to his second in command. "Lock down all information about the breach. Tell the public it's just a training exercise." "It's too late for that, sir," his assistant replied, showing him a datapad. "Someone's broadcasting proof of the ship's presence on civilian channels. They're also sending out other information." Reed's heart nearly stopped when he saw what was being broadcast. The invasion plans. The carefully hidden truth about human technological advancement. The lies they had told their own people. Somehow, the humans had gotten their hands on the Concordat's most closely guarded secrets. In the space around their main worlds, the Concordat fleet moved in confusion. Ships designed for perfect coordination were now getting in each other's way as they tried to find an enemy they couldn't properly track. Some captains were breaking formation, trying their own search patterns in desperate attempts to catch the human vessel. "Sir, we're getting unusual readings from the outer defense grid," another operator reported. "The human ship might be trying to." The operator never finished. Suddenly, every screen in the command center changed. The face of a human appeared. Captain Stone of the HSS Thunder. His message began playing on every channel, on every screen, in every home across Concordat space. "People of the Concordat," the human said calmly, "you have been lied to. Your leaders have hidden the truth about humanity, about their plans for war, about the real state of your defenses. We bring you proof of these deceptions." Reed watched in horror as the most damaging secrets of the Concordat began playing across the screens. He could already imagine the chaos this would cause. Their entire society was built on the belief in Concordat superiority. What would happen when people learned it was all built on lies? "Shut it down," he screamed. "Cut all communications." "We can't, sir," his technical chief replied. "They're using our own emergency broadcast system. If we shut it down, we'll lose control of all our defense networks." Reed slumped in his command chair. The humans hadn't come to fight. They had come to do something far more dangerous. They had come to tell the truth. And against that weapon, all the Concordat's mighty ships and advanced technology were useless. In the streets below the command center, crowds were gathering. The sounds of angry voices drifted up through the windows. The perfect order of the Concordat was beginning to break down, and Reed realized with growing dread that they had no way to stop it. Lieutenant Anna Miller's hands moved smoothly over the navigation controls of the HSS Thunder as she guided the massive warship through the dense asteroid field. Behind them, 30 Concordat ships followed, their weapons ready but unable to get a clear lock on the human vessel. The chase had been going on for 6 hours, and the alien ships were growing more desperate with each passing minute. "Another cluster of rocks ahead," Miller reported, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "I can use their gravity to slingshot us deeper into the field." She had spent years studying space mechanics, and now every bit of that knowledge was being put to the test. Captain Stone watched from his command chair as his navigator worked her magic. The Thunder responded like it was part of her own body, sliding between massive space rocks with barely meters to spare. Some of the Concordat ships were trying to copy their moves, but their computers couldn't match the human ability to see patterns and take creative risks. 2 enemy ships just collided trying to follow our path, The tactical officer reported with a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Their formation is breaking up. They're splitting into smaller groups to try to trap us. Dr. Wright spoke up from his science station, where he was monitoring their stealth systems. Captain, I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from the asteroids ahead. There might be something hidden in there. Stone leaned forward in his chair. The Concordat had been using this asteroid field as cover for something, and now they might find out what. Take us in closer, Lieutenant, but be ready to pull back fast if needed. Miller nodded, her fingers dancing across the controls. The Thunder turned smoothly, using the gravity of a passing asteroid to change direction without using its engines. Behind them, more Concordat ships were forced to slow down or risk destruction in the dense field. They're getting desperate, the communications officer said. Their commanders are arguing over the command channel. Some want to use their heavy weapons, but others are afraid of hitting their own secret base. Just then, a massive explosion lit up space behind them. One of the Concordat ships had fired its main weapons, trying to clear a path through the asteroids. Instead, the blast had started a chain reaction, sending rocks tumbling in all directions. Several alien ships had to break off pursuit to avoid being crushed. Found it. Dr. Wright called out suddenly. There's a hidden station about 3,000 kilometers ahead. It's built right into one of the larger asteroids. They're trying to power up some kind of weapon system. Stone smiled slightly. Send a detailed scan of the station to all civilian channels in the system. Let's show their people what their leaders have been hiding out here. The Thunder moved closer to the hidden base, its sensors recording everything. The Concordat ships behind them were in chaos now, some still giving chase while others tried to form a defensive line around their secret installation. More ships coming in from the outer system, Tactical reported. They'll have us surrounded in about 10 minutes. Miller's hands never stopped moving across her controls. I've found us a path out. There's a cluster of spinning asteroids ahead. If we time it right, we can use their rotation to mask our exit vector. They'll never be able to guess which way we went. Stone nodded. Do it. We've gotten what we came for. Time to show them another trick. The Thunder spun gracefully between the tumbling space rocks, its movements so precise it seemed impossible for something so large to move so smoothly. The Concordat ships fell further behind, their automated systems unable to cope with the complex gravitational patterns. As they emerged from the asteroid field, the human ship seemed to fade from view, its stealth systems making it nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Behind them, the Concordat fleet was left searching helplessly, their perfect order now completely broken. Inside the Concordat's hidden base on Rigel VI, High Commander Reed stared at the stream of data flowing across his screens. The human ship had found their secret installation and, worse, had broadcast its location to every civilian in the system. 300 years of careful planning were falling apart in a single day. The massive underground chamber hummed with energy as technicians rushed to delete sensitive files and destroy evidence, but they were too late. The humans had already copied everything. The invasion plans, the weapons research, the true reports about Earth's military strength. It was all being broadcast across Concordat space. Sir, his intelligence chief approached with a data pad. We've finished analyzing their flight path through the asteroid field. The human ship didn't stumble across our base by accident. They knew exactly where to look. Reed's skin darkened even further with rage and fear. How? This facility is our most closely guarded secret. Even most of our own military doesn't know it exists. We found this in our communication logs. The intelligence chief showed him a series of seemingly random signal patterns. They've been watching us for months, maybe years. These patterns, they're not random noise like we thought. They're human data transmissions, hidden in our own background signals. On the main screen, another civilian protest began in the capital city. The crowds were larger now, and their signs showed pictures of the secret base. The Concordat's carefully maintained image of peaceful scientific advancement was crumbling as their own people learned about the massive war fleet being built in secret. "Commander," a young officer called out, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from the human ship. They're powering up something we've never seen before." Reed rushed to the sensor station. The readings made no sense. The human vessel was generating power levels that should have been impossible for their technology level. Unless everything the Concordat thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. The communication system crackled to life again. Captain Stone's voice filled the command center, but this time he wasn't speaking to the civilian population. "Commander Reed, by now you've realized that your secret is out, but you haven't figured out the most important part yet." Reed's hands gripped the edge of the console. "What are you talking about, human? Did you really think we just happened to develop the exact technology needed to bypass your defenses? That we just happened to find your secret base?" Stone's voice carried a hint of amusement. "We've been feeding you fake intelligence reports for years, letting you think we were decades behind you technologically. Every time you thought you were studying us, we were actually studying you." The implications hit Reed like a physical blow. The Concordat's entire strategy had been based on their belief in their technological superiority. But if the humans had been hiding their true capabilities all along? "Sir," his tactical officer's voice shook slightly, "we're detecting more human ships entering the system. They're coming out of jump points we didn't know existed." Reed watched as new signals appeared on their tracking screens. The humans hadn't sent just one ship. The Thunder had been a test, a proof that they could break through the Concordat's defenses at will. And now that the test had succeeded, "Your choice is simple, Commander," Stone continued. "You can either tell your people the truth about everything, or we can do it for you. Either way, the age of Concordat superiority is over. The only question is how many more lies will be exposed before you accept it." In the silence that followed, Reed looked around his command center. The proud certainty that had filled this room just days ago was gone, replaced by fear and confusion. The Concordat's greatest weapon had been their aura of invincibility. Now that it was broken, he wasn't sure what they had left. The HSS Thunder hung in space near Rigel VI's largest moon, its dark hull reflecting the dim starlight. Concordat ships had finally managed to surround the human vessel, their weapons locked on and ready to fire. The standoff had lasted for nearly an hour, with neither side willing to make the first move. On the Thunder's bridge, Captain Stone sat calmly in his command chair. The crew worked quietly at their stations, showing none of the fear that the Concordat expected from a cornered enemy. Instead, there was an air of quiet confidence throughout the ship. Dr. Wright monitored the energy readings from his science station. "They've got 37 ships around us now, Captain. Their weapons are powered up, but they're hesitating. The civilian broadcasts are making them nervous about firing the first shot." The main screen lit up as Commander Reed's face appeared. The alien leader's skin had taken on an almost black color from stress. "You have nowhere left to run, human. Surrender your vessel now, and we might show mercy." Stone smiled slightly. "Commander, I don't think you understand the situation. We're not cornered. We're exactly where we want to be." He nodded to his communications officer, who pressed a series of controls. Suddenly, new data began broadcasting across all channels, not just to the civilian population this time, but to every ship in the Concordat fleet. The truth about the Thunder's mission began to unfold. "You see, Commander," Stone continued, "this ship was never meant to run. We wanted you to chase us. We wanted you to gather every ship you could to surround us. Because every one of those ships is now receiving the full technical specifications of how we breached your defenses." The effect was immediate. On dozens of Concordat ships, crews stared at their screens in disbelief as they saw the true nature of their supposed superiority. The humans hadn't just matched their technology. They had understood it better than the Concordat themselves. Lieutenant Miller spoke up from her station. "Multiple ships are powering down their weapons, Captain. Their crews are refusing orders to fire." The human ship's mission wasn't about military victory. It was about something far more powerful: the truth. Every second the standoff continued, more Concordat military personnel were learning how their leaders had lied to them, how the planned invasion of human space would have led to a disaster for the Concordat fleet. "Your own people deserve to know what you were planning," Stone said to Reed. "They deserve to know that you were willing to sacrifice thousands of lives based on false information about human capabilities. Information that we fed you, piece by piece, year after year." Reed's face twisted with rage. Fire. All ships, fire now. But nothing happened. His fleet hummed motionless in space, their crews now as uncertain about their orders as they were about everything else they had been told. "The age of lies is over, Commander," Stone continued. "Your people are ready for the truth. The only question is whether you're ready to tell it to them." The tension on the bridge grew as everyone waited for Reed's response. The next few moments would determine whether the Concordat would choose peace or destruction. But Stone knew they had already won the real battle, the battle for truth. Dr. Reich's console beeped softly. "Captain, I'm detecting power fluctuations in the Concordat fleet. Their command and control systems are starting to break down. The crews are rejecting central authority." Stone nodded slowly. The Concordat's perfect order had been built on carefully maintained lies. Now that those lies were exposed, that order was crumbling. And in its place, something new had a chance to grow. Something built on truth and mutual respect between humans and aliens. News of the confrontation spread through Concordat space like wildfire. On every planet, moon, and space station, civilians gathered in huge crowds to watch the broadcasts from the Thunder. The perfectly ordered society that had existed for 3 centuries was transforming before their eyes. The first calls for change came from the outer colonies. These worlds, furthest from the central government's control, had always harbored quiet doubts about Concordat propaganda. Now those doubts burst into the open. Local governors found themselves facing peaceful but determined crowds demanding direct communication with Earth. On the capital world, the streets around the Grand Council chamber filled with people. They carried signs showing images of the secret military base and the invasion plans. Many held up pictures of the Thunder, seeing it not as an enemy vessel, but as a symbol of truth breaking through lies. Inside his office in the military command center, Reed watched the screens showing protests across Concordat space. His own soldiers were joining the civilians now. Entire crews had powered down their ships, refusing to follow orders until the full truth was revealed. "Sir," his assistant reported, "we're receiving messages from 17 colony worlds. They're declaring themselves independent from central authority until new leadership can be elected." The assistant's voice shook slightly. "And sir, 3 more fleet commanders have announced they're standing down their forces." In orbit around various Concordat worlds, military vessels began breaking formation. Some moved to protect civilian populations. Others simply powered down their weapons and waited. The chain of command, once absolute and unquestioned, was dissolving. The Thunder remained in position, still surrounded by Concordat ships. But now those ships were dividing into 3 groups. Some remained loyal to Reed, their weapons still targeted on the human vessel. Others had turned their weapons away, clearly refusing to fire. A third group had positioned themselves between the Thunder and the loyal ships, protecting the vessel that had brought them the truth. On the Thunder's bridge, Captain Stone received a new message. This one didn't come from military command or the civilian government. It came from the Science Academy, the highest center of learning in Concordat space. "Captain," the lead scientist's voice was clear and determined. "We have reviewed the technical data you've provided. Everything checks out. We've been living in a carefully constructed bubble of artificial superiority. Our leaders have been holding back our true potential by making us fear and dismiss human innovation." More messages began pouring in from across Concordat space. Medical researchers discovered that valuable human biological research had been suppressed. Engineers found that human technological breakthroughs had been hidden from them. Each revelation sparked new waves of peaceful protest. The Concordat civilian news networks, for the first time in their history, began broadcasting without government oversight. They showed the crowds in the streets, the ships refusing orders, the scientists sharing their discoveries. Most importantly, they showed ordinary citizens beginning to talk openly with each other about building a new relationship with humanity. In the outer regions of Concordat space, the first unofficial meetings between human and alien civilians began taking place. Border stations that had once been heavily armed outposts became meeting points for cultural exchange. Centuries of fear and distrust started to melt away as both species discovered how much they had in common. The Thunder's mission had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. Instead of sparking a war, it had sparked a revolution, not of violence, but of truth and understanding. The carefully maintained walls between humans and aliens were falling, not from weapons fire, but from the simple power of honest communication. 3 days after the Thunder's mission began, representatives from Earth and the Concordat met in neutral space. The massive conference chamber on Europa Station hummed with activity as humans and aliens gathered together openly for the first time in centuries. The future of both civilizations would be decided here. Captain Stone stood at one of the large viewing windows, watching ships from both fleets floating peacefully in space outside. Just days ago, those same ships had been ready to destroy each other. Now their crews were busy establishing communication channels and sharing technical knowledge. High Commander Reed had resigned his position, along with most of the old Concordat leadership. In their place, a temporary council had formed, made up of both civilian and military leaders who had stood against the invasion plans. They came to the peace talks not as superiors, but as equals seeking a new way forward. Dr. Wright from the Thunder found himself deep in conversation with Concordat scientists. They compared notes on their different approaches to technology, discovering that each species had developed unique solutions to similar problems. What had once been seen as competition was transforming into collaboration. Lieutenant Miller led a joint session on space navigation techniques. The Concordat pilots were amazed by the human ability to plot courses using intuition and creative thinking, while the humans learned from the aliens' precise mathematical approaches. Together, they began developing new methods that combined the strengths of both species. The old leadership was wrong about so many things, a Concordat scientist told Stone during a break in the talks. We thought keeping secrets made us strong. Instead, it held us back. Think of what we could have accomplished if we'd worked together all along. The temporary council presented their proposal for the future. The Concordat would not be dissolved, but transformed. The old system of central control would be replaced by a network of cooperating worlds, each free to develop their own relationships with Earth and its colonies. The military forces would be reorganized into a joint defense fleet, focused on protecting both species from real threats rather than fighting each other. Most importantly, all technological and scientific research would be shared openly between both civilizations. The barriers that had kept them apart for so long were finally coming down. Already, teams of human and alien researchers were planning joint projects that would benefit everyone. On the final day of the conference, Captain Stone received a new mission from Earth Command. The Thunder would become the first joint human Concordat vessel, carrying a mixed crew on missions of exploration and discovery. What had begun as a mission of secret infiltration would end as a symbol of cooperation between species. The crew gathered on the bridge one last time before the changes would begin. Stone looked at each of them, remembering how they had carried out their mission not with weapons, but with truth as their strongest tool. "We came here thinking we would expose an enemy," he told them. "Instead, we found potential friends who were trapped by the same lies that kept us apart. Our real victory wasn't in outsmarting their defenses or revealing their secrets. It was in showing both sides that we're stronger together than we ever were apart." As the Thunder prepared for its new mission, messages poured in from across human and Concordat space. People on both sides were eager to learn from each other, to trade ideas and culture, to build something new together. The ship's success had sparked not just a political change, but a transformation in how both species saw themselves and each other. The age of lies and secrets was over. In its place, a new era of cooperation and shared discovery was beginning. And it had all started with a single ship, carrying not weapons of war, but the most powerful force in the universe, the truth.